Good evening, everybody. It is Monday night, and this is the first of the handful of videos that I am creating on innovation and creativity. And specifically, we will be debriefing the IDEO case, and I'm going to talk about the things that we would have normally talked about had we had class tonight. So I'm showing you this cover, Business Week, in 2004, The Power of Design. IDEO, as you can see from the fact that it's featured on the cover of Business Week, is a very prestigious company, and in fact, even today is considered to be one of, if not the world's leading design firms. You might remember from the Building the Emotional Intelligence of Group article that IDEO is noted at the end as an example or an exemplar of an outstanding team. And thus a really good opportunity for us to look at innovation and creativity. Teams play an integral part in IDEO's overall innovative system. So let me, before we go into the case, and to be sure, this is, as I mentioned via email, a few different videos I'm putting up, and please excuse the fact that the videos are multiple rather than just one. This was the only solution I was able to come up with, and YouTube only allows 15-minute videos. So this is it, folks. Okay, so fostering innovation and creativity, as you can see, is the primary topic of discussion tonight. And where do I have this? Okay. This is our class syllabus, and I just wanted to guide us through where we've been thus far. If you remember, I had talked to you about the fact that I would be doing, in sessions 1, 2, and 3, we would be talking about building, leading, and working well within teams. So we did things like the subject survival activity. I had you do Myers-Briggs, which is a classic opportunity for you to evaluate strengths and weaknesses within your own personality and think about how those can be meshed and leveraged within the context of a team. I asked you to read the Building the Emotional Intelligence of Groups, and think about how you could apply the ideas contained in the article to your own team's development. And then we also had the Managing a Global Team, Greg James. Just again to remind you, Module 3 lines up with the learning objective on managing and leading teams. Obviously, the core idea for us doing this is that you are leading teams right now and or working within them, and the idea is how do you be the best team player you can be and lead strong teams. So we've done that, and then if you remember, we also moved into the module on managing and leading diverse others. And session 2, because it included the Myers-Briggs, was also an opportunity to talk about managing differences, which is why it also fits well within this particular learning objective. And then last week, we analyzed the Eric Peterson case, which is really, as I hope you noted, very much about what distinguishes management and leadership, and what makes for a good leader and manager more generally. So tonight we move into the module of developing more effective organizations. And by the way, to be sure, session 2, once again, I wanted to apply the MBTI to you leading teams, which is why I included it at the onset of the semester. And Eric Peterson is typically an excellent case to use toward the beginning of a class like ours, so that we really are clear on what we're focusing on when we talk about managing and leading others. I wanted us to do innovation and creativity tonight, which fits with the developing more effective organizations, because the first activity that we would have done for the evening is called the Insight activity. And I was going to have you do it in teams, the idea being it would have been an opportunity for you to further develop your team and get to interact with each other. I am actually... not going to have us do that next class. I thought about it for a moment once again, but I decided not to. I'll explain briefly. The Insight activity is a team-based activity, and the idea is that you and your team would have been developing a pooper scooper, the latest and greatest. You would have been hired as a project or a product development team for a particular company that was hoping to create the new and improved pooper scooper, and you would have 20 minutes in class to brainstorm various ideas relevant to making the pooper scooper easier, more aesthetically pleasing, and then you would have presented your best idea to the class. And it's usually a very fun, exciting event, and it fits very squarely with innovation and creativity because it's a brainstorming event, which, as you know, is very, very, very core to IDEO's system. The brainstorming activity being one guided by certain rules like build on the ideas of others, don't criticize, the idea that quantity is going to be associated with quality, etc. And so just a really good activity to get people engaged and also build the teams and highlight the power of brainstorming. Now, to be sure, IDEO uses brainstorming as the backbone of its developmental process that is creating a lot of ideas that it can later use in order to choose the right product or service. In studies, we know that brainstorming actually does have drawbacks, and there are those who critique brainstorming negatively. So it's really up to you to decide when and where you'd want to use it. IDEO really uses it as the backbone of its development process. Others say it's overrated. So as an example, one of the drawbacks of brainstorming is called production blocking, in which because you're so considering others, by the way, I'm looking at the timing here. We're fine on time. Because you are so busy trying to listen to other people's ideas, your own production of ideas is blocked. And in addition, there is fear of sharing ideas because of status differences. So, for example, if you're a lower level employee with a bunch of VPs, the idea is that you'd be likely to experience less psychological safety than they would. And as a consequence, you would be undermined during the process, because you would fail to contribute as many ideas as you can. So those critiques are relevant, and some people believe that another type of decision-making technique called the nominal group decision-making technique is more appropriate, and in that case, everybody has to show up with their own ideas and then put them all together on, say, a whiteboard, and then clarify each one of those ideas so everybody understands them and people vote on the ideas privately. What you might do is consider taking the best of both worlds, in which everybody has to come to a brainstorming session with various ideas, then have a brainstorming session, then clarify, and if you wanted to, you might even vote privately at that point. So you could create your own variant of brainstorming that works. Just a few things that help brainstorming work. One is to think about various categories or criteria relevant to what you're brainstorming on. So, for example, with the pooper scooper, sometimes people get stuck. They'll come up with 10, 15 ideas, and then they'll get stuck. And if you create categories like, let's create a list of ideas solely relevant to making pooper scooping aesthetically pleasing. So does it smell good? Does it look good? And that can help people move in a better direction, versus, say, the criterion of let's make the process cheap, which might create a whole different set of ideas. Another one is, if you're actually going to do a brainstorming session, make sure that you implement ideas fairly quickly, because what you don't want to do in an organization is invite people to a process like that. They get really excited about some ideas, and then you're so slow on implementing them that it was like it never happened before. There is a really good article that McKinsey & Company put out, and I believe it's called the seven or eight ways to make brainstorming work effectively. And so I think I'll actually post that for you for anybody who's interested, because there are numerous reasons why you might want to do a brainstorming session. Lastly on that, we do on the Insight activity, we evaluate how credible or creative the teams have been on 3 criteria, one of which is the quantity of ideas that came out. The other is the level of diversity in those ideas. So the number of categories. So you might have had, 5, 6, 7 ideas that were so closely resembling each other that you didn't think necessarily outside of the box. There would be one category represented there. So, usually teams will come up with somewhere between 15 to 20 ideas. I'd say the more creative groups come up with more like 25 or 30. And then the diversity of categories represented, or different ideas, usually number somewhere between about 3 and 10. And then lastly, another way to evaluate creativity is novelty. How likely is it that another group came up with the same idea that you did? And if you come up with something that outside of the box, that could be one measure of creativity. More generally, by the way, one of the reasons to do this or have a conversation about innovation and creativity is that a study by IBM in which many senior executives were interviewed about the key competencies relevant to success in today's workplace yielded the idea that the number one competency for success in today's market is creativity. So it's really something to think about, and in your own evaluation of yourself via the innovator's DNA, it behooves you to ask yourself, am I creative? If so, how might I even become more creative? And bear with me for doing that. I think I'm going to stop this video and move on to another one.